I think some of you are taking some time to think about who your favorite scientist is. That's perfectly fine. You can think about it and then share it with all of us. Okay, so we have Gunni, and she's saying that her favorite scientist is James Watson. Very nice, Gunni. Anybody else who wants to share? We have Shubh Gupta from class 5, and he says that his favorite scientist is Albert Einstein. That's wonderful, Shubh. I'm sure a lot of us here really like Albert Einstein. One of our guest speakers for today is also pitching in. That's wonderful. So Chetna is telling us that her favorite scientist is APJ Abdul Kalam. Wow, he's a very inspiring scientist indeed. And Kirtan also has the same favorite scientist as Chetna. He also likes Dr. Abdul Kalam. Tanvi likes Albert Einstein. And we have Nick Hill, who has two favorites. He likes Albert Einstein and Isaac Newton. Aishwarya also likes Albert Einstein. He is a very famous scientist indeed. So I'm sure a lot of you are really inspired by him. So we'll just wait maybe for 1 or 2 more minutes, and then we'll be ready to begin. I'll tell you all about the speakers who are joining us today and what they will be teaching you about in this workshop. Okay, we have a couple more students who want to share. So Daksh, his favorite scientist is Albert Einstein as well. I think Albert Einstein is getting the most votes. We have Vanya Mittal, and her favorite scientist is Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam as well. We have Subhan, and his favorite scientist is Stephen Hawking. Wow, that's my favorite scientist too, Subhan. I really like Stephen Hawking and his work as well. Shahryar has joined us as well, and he is saying that his favorite scientist is Albert Einstein. Another vote for Albert Einstein. And Arush, he says his favorite scientist is Stephen Hawking. Wonderful, Arush. And we have some very nice guest speakers for you today who are joining us all the way from CERN in Switzerland. And we'll be ready to begin in just a minute. Okay, Swarali has joined us, and her favorite scientist is Vikram Sarabhai. Wow, so Swarali is really fascinated by space, right? So maybe that's why her favorite scientist is Vikram Sarabhai. Wonderful, Swarali. Dhruti's favorite scientist is Isaac Newton, another classic. And Chetna is telling us that she likes Marie Curie as well. So that's great. We have a female scientist in there. That's wonderful. Okay, so what we'll do now I think we are still waiting on our second guest speaker, but what I will do is I will begin introducing the speaker that has already joined us. So, welcome everyone to Nisaba Science Club. I'm so happy to see all of you here today. And today we have some very special guest speakers joining us all the way from CERN in Switzerland, who are going to be talking to us about something very interesting, something new, which we haven't done before, which is science journalism. So we'll have some fun activities where you will actually get to maybe think of an interview with a scientist. So let me introduce to you our first guest speaker for today, who is Chetna Krishna. So Chetna is joining us from CERN in Switzerland, and she is the social media manager at CERN. When she was 18 years old, Chetna left mechanical engineering to follow her passion for science communication. She is now pursuing a degree in science communication and bionics in Germany. And she also has experience in reporting science and environmental news on TV. Chetna aims to guide students in India to explore careers where science and social science meet. And she's managing CERN's social media channels, creating content and communicating particle physics to millions of followers in really fun and engaging ways. So welcome, Chetna. Welcome to Nisaba Science Club. And we are very excited to learn from you.
Hi, Aditi. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It's really nice to see so many students on the screen. Thank you for coming on your Sunday afternoon. So as Aditi said, I'm Chetna, and my job is mostly to learn about science like you do with Nisaba Science Club, but then also tell it to more people and tell it in a non-scientific, easy, digestible way. And social media is one way of doing it. So today we will help you, me and my friend Priyanka, who will be joining us soon. We will share with you how you can think of a topic, like let's say dark matter, and how you can identify some stories and maybe just write a nice article on it. I don't know how many of you guys like writing, but I hope after this workshop, you will like to pick up the pen and start writing science.
Thank you, Chetna. And our second guest speaker for today, Priyanka, has also just joined us. So welcome, Priyanka, to Nisaba Science Club. And let me introduce you to all our students here. So we have with us our second guest speaker for today, Priyanka Dasgupta. And Priyanka is working as a communications and marketing fellow at CERN. After doing a master's in zoology and another master's in science communication, she is now exploring different ways to take science beyond the laboratories to the people. And she has previously worked as a science communicator on the Science Express project, which is a mobile science exhibit which toured all across India. And Priyanka also loves experimenting with new ways to engage people in science. So we are very happy to have both Priyanka and Chetna here with us today. So over to you, Priyanka and Chetna.
Thank you so much, Aditi, for introducing us. And hello, everyone. It will be fun today. Thanks, Chetna. Chetna, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Priyanka.
Okay, so hello everyone. I think it has already been introduced. Chetna already told you about what we will be talking about today. So science can be communicated not only through the journals or the articles or the papers you see. It can also be communicated through news stories. So there are news stories, for example, that Big Bang Theory, some discoveries with Big Bang theories, and that is a breaking news story, for example. And if there is a new story about COVID discovery or coronavirus discovery, someone has discovered a new vaccine, people need to know about it, right? So who will translate all of the science that is going on in the lab and tell it to a general public in a way that it is understandable? And that is where the journalist or the science communicator comes in. So it is our work to do that. Me and Chetna, who work as science communicators at CERN, and it cannot just be one form. It's not always writing articles or writing news stories. It can also be some other formats. For example, you see in the parliament or the government, where people take important decisions on which vaccine will be made, let's say, for the coronavirus, or which important medicine should go into the market. In that case, science communicators do the research and advise these government ministers, who can then help decide the policy for us. Or, as you see in this picture, in the pictures on the right, it is me in the Royal Society of Chemistry in London, where we are doing a workshop with students visiting from different schools and colleges on how acids and alkalis are made, and or what are acids and alkalis. Now, this is another format where there is live interaction with people and you can explain science directly to people, somewhat what we are doing, like what we are doing today. And the left, Chetna, would you want to explain?
Yeah, thank you, Priyanka. This is a very nice example that, let's say, during COVID, people need to read news. So on news channels, you read science stories, and then the job of government politicians is to take it to the parliament policy to actually implement how we can fight COVID. But here the job is of science communicators to bridge the gap between scientists and parliament or policy. Another aspect is social media. So I don't know how many of your parents allow you to be on social media, but as you see here, for lots of organizations like NASA, CERN, ESA, European Space Agency, lots of people follow them online. And it's the job of science communicators to think of easy ways to talk to scientists and bring it to lots of people following these organizations online. Another format is writing articles. And Priyanka, would you like to tell more about?
I can talk about this one. Yeah, so on the right side, you see many yellow graphics and two people with money. So this was a way we were doing science magazines. So there are also this format of not just news about science, but also talking about different aspects of science. And this is the iScience magazine, which I was the editor of in Imperial College. And it talked about how science deals with money, power, politics, and more. And on the left, we have some interesting articles, Chetna.
Yeah, so as Aditi mentioned earlier, I was helping environmental and Asian news on TV, on online websites, apps. So this is one article about CERN. And then this is one article during COVID, how people are more interested in buying secondhand items. And when we start buying secondhand items, we start reusing available resources. So we are going towards a circular, more sustainable environment. Then writing articles is the focus of today's workshop, but we would quickly like to also mention where your words can make a difference. You can write articles, but you can also write science scripts. And nowadays, podcasts are a very popular medium. Maybe not for the time when I was in my 5th or 6th class, but now I love podcasts. So Living Planet is like a Discovery Channel award-winning podcast. And before actually talking, scientists and science communicators need to write the episode. The CERN Sparks podcast talks about artificial intelligence, and then also we need to write. And Priyanka, walk us through some other formats.
And the other quick formats is, how many of you have heard of Discovery Channel or Nat Geo? Have you heard of that? And so the people working on the science behind those documentaries or the experiments that go on in Discovery Science, for example, they also are science communicators, but in a video format. And then on the top left, there is something called Fame Lab, which is a format of going on stage there with your science and explaining it very quickly in 3 minutes, let's say, but in the form of dance, by singing a song. Maybe someone could do a rap about chemistry. And those are different formats you can take on. But now I think, Chetna, we should move on to the main event of the day.
Awesome.
Yes. So activity. So what are we going to do today? Today, we are all going to be journalists. We are all going to take out our pens and notepads and interview a scientist. Now, this scientist will be a character we give you, and we will tell you how you can think like a journalist, think like a science communicator, and then you can make your own news article. So let's start, Chetna.
Okay.
So Aditi, from now, I think we can go into different rooms, and some of you will come with me and some of you will go with Chetna, and we will walk you through on how we can do the article. All right.
Okay, so just give me a minute while I put all of you into 2 different rooms so that we can all work on the activity.
In the meantime, if you don't have your paper, pen, pencil, maybe you can get it.
Just give me a minute. I'm putting all of you into breakout rooms.
So I'm gonna read some names and just say hello to everyone here. Hi, Manshvi. Manashvi.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, nice. Thank you for coming today. Moksh and Shreya, Daksh, Gauraksh, Shrija, thank you all for coming today. Really, I'm so happy to see all of you. So I'll give a few more seconds and then share my slides so everyone joins together. I see Parth. Hi, Parth, Rupali, Kirtan. I remember Kirtan. I think he was also there in a previous workshop we did. Maybe. Okay, now I will share my slides. Okay, so today we will really try to think like a writer, like a journalist, like a science communicator. And then we will guide you on how you can write science. So every story has a hero or a heroine. In journalism, we call them story characters. So those characters this time could be two scientists. And we have identified two fun characters for you who are the real life heroes of science, I would say. Dr. Power. Dr. Power is someone who works in labs across the world, and she studies viruses, a very important subject now that we are realizing, of course, developing a COVID test. So she has been involved in developing tests by which you can see if you are positive or negative. And then my favorite is, because I like physics, Dr. Bolt. Dr. Bolt works in the antimatter factory, and he's a physicist, and he studies why there is more matter. Matter is people like us that you can touch and you can see. Why there is more matter than antimatter. That's the whole existence question. Why are we existing? Why are we more than antimatter? So that's Dr. Bolt. So I would just like you to think, which character do you like more? And then choose between Dr. Power and Dr. Bolt. So just take a few seconds, see which story appeals you, how you can write an article. Like in this exercise, you won't write a full article, but you would think of questions. What kind of questions would you like to ask if you got the chance to meet Dr. Power and Dr. Bolt? So before I jump on the next slide and explain you more, I'm gonna just help you. What kind of questions can you ask? Let's say I had to meet Shah Rukh Khan. I would be first awestruck. I would not know what to ask him. But after those fangirling moments, maybe I would ask him, besides acting, what do you like to do in your free time? So that's like a work related question, what? Then let's say Dr. Bolt. Dr. Bolt, you can ask where. What is, let's say, where is antimatter factory located exactly? Who could be, who are the people who are working in antimatter factory? Is everyone a scientist? I'm not a scientist, I'm an engineer. So questions like that. Then there's always when. Time, like when is a very, very important aspect of science writing. You can't just write anything you want in a news channel. In a news channel, it has to be now. Why now? Why should I watch this news now if it's talking about 30 years old story? So the time is very important. Then what, why, how, you will, it's up to you. So this is, as I already explained, what could be a discovery. Like in CERN, they study particles and how universe is existing. So in 2008, CERN discovered the Higgs boson, which told us how universe is getting its mass. So that's a what. How could be, how does Higgs boson give mass to the universe? How does it work? Why is it important? So that could be story. So now I've talked a lot. It's your chance. So I'll give you like 10 minutes, let's say. Right now it's in my clock. It's 10:56 Geneva time. I can someone unmute and tell me what's the time on your side?
It's 3:26.
Okay, thank you, Vanya. So
I'm in India. It's that 3:26.
okay, got it. So 3:26. Let's say by 3. Okay, 30. By 3:35, you think of 5 questions and think of a question in the format of a story, that after those questions you can really write a story. So choose between Dr. Power, who in real life can be Minal Bhosle, who in India is studying how to make COVID test kits. So you can think of questions for her, 5 questions, or Michael Dozer, who works at CERN and he studies anti-atoms, matter, antimatter, and just think of what kind of questions would you like to ask. So choose, and I will unmute. I will turn off my camera for 5 minutes. Take your time.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, may I ask a question?
Yes. Go on.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I want to ask that, ma'am, we have to write on one of them or both of them?
One of them. Choose one and write 5 questions. What would you like to ask if you met them in real life?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, so take your time and see you in 5 minutes. If you have any questions, you can ask in the chat. I will reply. Okay, so has everyone completed or wants a few more minutes to write some questions?
I wanna have once a few more minutes.
Okay, take your time.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
I have done.
Okay, great. So even if you don't have all the 5 questions, it's okay. Just 2 or 3 questions are really enough. Maybe Swarili would like to start.
Yes, ma'am. I would like to ask these 5 questions to Mrs. Power.
Okay.
What is a COVID-19 test and how does it help? When did you finally discover the COVID-19 test? How does the COVID-19 test kit actually work? Why do we need the test kits? Who contributed in making these kits?
Nice. That's very nice, Swarili. Interesting questions, and they are in depth. They are not really basic. So you thought about them. Thank you. Next,
Thank you,
maybe
ma'am.
Goraksh.
Ma'am, subhanallah Ahmad.
I'm gonna try to give everyone a chance, but Goraksh, are you ready? No? Okay, then Subhan, go next.
Yes, ma'am. How anti-atoms are made? Where is the sun exactly? What is the antimatter? Who is physicist? Why we measure gravitational interaction?
Wow, I love it. I love your question. Who is a physicist? In science, or like in science writing, we should never assume that our audience knows everything. We should take it really basic. So, yeah, that's a good question. What does a physicist do? Who is a physicist? Who studies physics? But what does it mean in real life outside studying books? So, it's nice. And okay, thank you, Subhan. So the
Mitul
next,
and Bhavika had also made a good.
okay, so yeah, I'll pick and choose. Just the next person I ask. You start with saying, I would like to interview. Say the name of the person. Let's say Michael Dozer or Minal,
Okay, ma'am.
and then start with your
May
question.
Mitul and Bhavika tell?
Yeah. Just let me. Okay, go on. Yes.
Okay, ma'am. Mitul Rivak from class 6th A, and today I'm going to interview Mr. Michael Dozer. Okay, so hello, Mr. Michael Dozer. Who is a physicist? What does he do? Okay, may you tell me about that? How does the anti-atoms form? May you tell me about that? What are matter and antimatter? What is the interaction between matter and antimatter? Where have you studied about them? Thank you.
Nice. Thank you so much. I really like your reading. It's very good. That's also very important in science journalism. Once you write your article,
Can Bhavika?
who is
There's my sister also, ma'am.
okay, go on. Yes,
She tell also.
yes.
Ma'am Bhavika has right 3 questions.
Okay.
Hello, Mr. Michael Dozer. Okay, will you tell me about that? How does the anti
Antimatter.
Anti-atom form. Anti-atoms form. May you tell me about what are matter, antimatter? Where you have studied about them?
Oh, very nice. Thank you, Bhavika. So let me thank you both. And now, please, if possible, can you turn off the microphone so I can see on my screen properly? And oh, no. Let's see, who else do we have? Kirtan or okay. Kirtan and
I have only two questions.
okay.
Why do you focus on formation of anti-atoms? Why we need to measure gravitational interaction between matter and antimatter?
Okay, interesting. Thank you, Kirtan. And then Kshitij. Kshitij, please start with saying, I would like to interview this person, and then start with your questions.
Okay, ma'am. I would like to interview Minal Dhakave. And my questions, I made 3 questions.
Okay.
First is, how do you become a virologist? And how do you know how to make a test kit? And the third and last question is, how do people become doctors?
Wow, nice. Okay, I will talk a little bit more about these questions because they are very interesting. And Kshitij, now think of your questions in terms of an article. And I think you are more interested in knowing about the how. So imagine if your article is about how to become a virologist. It's so now you need to think of everything in your capacity to answer that question, and everything else is secondary. So instead of focusing on COVID test kits, you only focus on the study to become a virologist. What colleges are important? What kind of subjects do I need to study? And what does a virologist do in real life? So that would be an interesting article. So thank you, Kshitij. Interesting questions. Next person I see is Moksh.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
I have made 5 questions, and ma'am, first question is where she lives, Mrs. Manal Dekve Bhosle, and ma'am, second question is my labs in India or somewhere else? Third question is what is the name of test kit that detects COVID-19 in 2.5 hours? And ma'am, fourth question is what are the benefits of test kits? And ma'am, last question is how much minimum time will take to prepare a test kit?
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Moksh. Yes, interesting questions. You asked, where is my lab? Where is this scientist? And that's nice, right? Because sometimes we think scientists are working in like polar caps. I used to think that. I don't know about you. I used to think scientists are someone who just work in like North Pole, South Pole, but they are really like a normal job profession. They go to office, do their lab work, and then come back home. So where are they living? That could be also an interesting aspect of an article. Okay, next on my screen, I see Vanya.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, I will be like to interview Mainal Dakhave Bhosle, and I have made 5 questions. So, the questions are: where is my lab situated? How many persons are currently working with you? Why you choose the time 2.5 hours? Have you ever tried the test kit on the public place? Have you started how you started thinking about it? Are test kits really better than the imported ones? If they are, why don't you import your test kit to the foreign countries?
Nice. You went one step ahead. and you are thinking of test kits and how you can import, export them. So maybe the focus of your article in the future could be about the development of test kits, and then what do scientists do with it? How does it actually reach people and hospitals? So yeah, thank you, Vanya. Very interesting. Okay, let me see, who do I see on my screen? Manishwi.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you
How, Mama?
would you like to read your questions?
Yes, ma'am. Why measurement of the gravitational interacted between matter and animator?
Hmm. That's a question everyone is trying to understand. So yeah, and if you don't have any more questions, no problem. We can ask another person. Let me see, who is this new person who turned off his camera? Oh, Kirtan, hi, now I can see you. But I think you already asked your questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Manashwi. If no more, or do you have something more? Okay.
Ma'am,
So, Manashwi, you can also write your questions in the chat whenever you are, whenever you want. I will read them. Then let's try another person, if that's okay. Rupali, I see on my screen a nice name called Rupali Saxena. Rupali is shy. So we move on to another person. Paki? Paki,
yes, ma'am.
Paki, would you like to read your questions? Whom did you choose, Dr. Minal or Dr. Dozer?
So, ma'am, I don't have any query.
Then we choose one last person. And who is the one last volunteer who would like to tell me what kind of questions would you like to ask if you met Dr. Bhosle or Dr. Dozer in real life? Let me see any raised hands on my screen. Okay, who is the brave one? Okay. Okay, Ashwarya, you are the last person to read your questions. Thank you.
Yes. Miss, I want to 2 minutes. Is my voice clear?
Yes.
I will ask Dr. Bold about my questions.
Okay.
I have 5 questions. Why do you choose antimatter to study? Where is antimatter factory? Who are you inspired with to study antimatters? When do you realize that you want to study existence of universe? What do you do in your free time?
Nice. I like your question, Ashwarya. What do you do in your free time? And lots of your questions, as I understood, are related to the work of a physicist. What do you study? Why do you study this? So it could be an interesting story to tell life, day in a life of an antimatter physicist. So like in the morning, does he like coffee or tea, or does he like water? And then what time does he go to work? And in work, how does he physically work with machines to find antimatter? And then once he gets back home, what does he enjoy? Does he again like to go and Google and find out other research papers, or he likes to relax? So that could be an interesting story layout. So everyone had really amazing questions. Thank you, Aishwarya. Okay, then let's move on. So as I'm trying to say again and again, with your questions, you think of an angle. Usually how it works in real life, you have a story in your mind and you think it's amazing, but your editor does not think that. So you have to convince your boss, why is your story amazing? So you have to think of an angle. Let's say Aishwarya thought that the work of a physicist is interesting, and that could be a story angle for my readers. So now all your questions, all your story characters are based on your story. What I mean by that is story characters, it's like a movie. Story character doesn't always have to be a scientist. One could be Michael Dozer telling about his life, but another character could be wife of a scientist, really telling us the personal aspects of a scientist. Or maybe the wife is a scientist as well. So how do you both, who are incredible scientists, work together and stay together? So story characters are important. The angle of the story is important. And another thing is, think of a headline. So let's say, Aishwarya, if you're still there, could you think of a headline for your story? Okay, let's let everyone take 1 minute and think of a story headline for your stories, and then any volunteers can share the story headline, like learn about Shah Rukh Khan in 1 minute. That could be my storyline.
So
Yep.
I think my storyline should be Life of Dr. Bold.
Okay, nice. Yes, I like that, Aishwarya. And I see Swarili has her hands up.
Yes, ma'am. So my angle of the story is awareness about COVID-19 test kits and the science behind them. And my hook is all about COVID-19 test kits.
Nice. Yeah. And what would be a headline? Like in a newspaper, you open the newspaper and you see the title.
Ma'am, Mittal tell his headline.
Okay. So wait first. Let's wait for Swarili.
Okay, ma'am.
Ma'am, I already told my headline as hook.
Oh,
all about COVID-19 test kits.
Okay. Okay. So the hook and the headline are, yeah, small and short and sweet. Thank you.
Okay.
And, yeah. Mittal.
Ma'am, Mittal's and Bhavika Virwal's story headline. Ma'am, his hook is The Secret Life Adventures of Dr. Bold.
Oh, wow, nice. I like that. I would like to read that article. Okay, next is, let me see, Vanya.
Thank you, ma'am. Should we tell about only Dr. Power and only Dr. Bold?
For this exercise, but after this exercise, I know, I hope that you would look at other scientists and think of
Ma'am,
other
I would like
stories.
to tell.
Okay, I'll try to give everyone a chance, but let's go with Vanya.
An Indian woman with COVID test kits.
Okay, but that could be, it doesn't tell you that it could be me as well, right? But you could say an Indian scientist with COVID test kits. Then it shows that the scientist is from India, or you could say an Indian scientist, a story of an Indian scientist developing COVID test kits.
We can also say an interview with Minal Takave Bhosle on COVID test kits.
Yes. So now in 1 minute, our breakout room will be over and we will
Yes, ma'am.
meet in the big room. But I hope you thought of interesting questions and how you can write about stories. Next time you can think outside physics and biology. You can think of astronomy, stars and galaxies, astronauts. So yes, and see you in the main room. Thank you everyone for joining.
Okay, ma'am. And ma'am, I have to tell that ma'am, your teaching is very excellent.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to the main room. I hope you all had some fun time interviewing some scientists in your individual breakout rooms. And I think people are slowly coming back to the main room.
Yes, Aditi, it was really nice. I think students had really interesting questions, and then I helped them in thinking of those questions and how you can convert it into an article or a news story. And I was also telling them that sometimes you think it's an excellent story, but your job is to convince your boss, and in real life, your editor, who doesn't think it might be an interesting story. So you have to think that it's relevant. Why now? Why do you want to talk about this story now? And yes, but students are very intelligent already.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and a lot of people had many interesting questions. Nice.
Okay, I think everyone is back to the main room. So we still have a couple of minutes left. So if any of you have any questions for Chetna or Priyanka, you can type your name in the chat and we'll invite you to ask your question. So we have a question from Manya.
Ma'am, I have a question to Priyanka ma'am.
Yes, Manya, go.
मैम आपने कहा था कि अभी हम अपनी क्वेश्चंस निस्बा चैट पे भी डाल सकते हैं तो उसकी हेडलाइन कैसे कर सकते हैं हम
Aditi, do you want to help? I think there is so what I was suggesting them was that if someone wants to share the 5 questions, so many students came up with very nice questions, including you, Manya. So they wanted to share these questions somehow or send it to me. So to me, I am putting my email in the chat, and you can write to me there. But for the Nisaba app, I think there is also a way to share
Yes.
on the platform, right?
Yeah, so if you go to the course from where you joined today's workshop, there will be a place called course discussions, and there you can post your questions, your headline, anything else that you like. We can have a discussion there. So any other questions?
Everyone has been asking questions already, so everyone is a journalist mode now.
That's wonderful.
Oh, that's good. That's good. If everyone is happy with their questions, very good. So, do you want to? How much time do we have left, Aditi?
So we have just hit 4 o'clock. So we can take 1 or 2 more minutes if you guys want to sum up what we've done.
Chetna, do you want to have a go at summing up? Or for me, it was very fun. It was really nice to meet all of you. It was really nice to have your questions. So as you remember, the questions will help us get the answers for the article we're writing, right? Because whenever we have interesting questions, it is the questions that people will also want to know about, and you have a breaking news story on your hand.
Sorry, we are just getting 1 or 2 last minute questions.
Oh, okay,
Sure,
okay, okay.
bring them on.
Yes, bring them on.
So we have a question from Vanya.
Yes.
So I would like to ask to Chetna, ma'am. Ma'am, have you ever interviewed anyone?
Yes, I interviewed lots of people, but maybe my favorite interview was with a scientist from NASA, and he was in the US, I was in Europe, so it was via phone, and it was for a podcast. I was very nervous, and I was nervous that I won't understand his English because has an heavy American accent, but he was very nice. And as someone from your group said, what do scientists like to do in their free time? Questions like that. So,
and I have one more question. Like you said, that we have to, sometimes our editor does not allow us to keep the story in the news. So has it ever happened with you?
so editor is not the enemy, but they really want you to make your story flashy, that people actually try to read it. So I have to make changes, go back and think what my editor would like. So yes, this happens many times.
And how do you convince them? If
Then
you think your story is like the best,
yeah,
and they are just not allowing you, then also. So
then I find interesting characters that they can't refuse. Someone like Shah Rukh Khan, but maybe a scientist. So yes, it helps.
thank you, ma'am. That was end of my questions.
Thank you.
We also have a question from Mitul and Bhavika.
Ma'am, what is the story of matter and antimatter? Yes, ma'am.
So Dr. Bolt or Michael Dozer in Antimatter Factory at CERN is working on it in answering that question. But lots of other experiments are also working on it. They are now trying to find out how gravity affects antimatter. If you throw an apple, it falls. Would it be the same with an anti-apple? How would an anti-apple react in gravity? So we don't have the answer yet, but we are trying to see gravity and stuff. Hopefully one day you can come to CERN and ask this question yourself.
I sorry, I was muted, but Mitul and Bhavika, I also sent you a link on the chat. If you want to discover, you can read about it more on how the research is being done.
Okay,
Right.
ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Sakshi, do you have a question?
Yes, let me just unmute Sakshi.
I have a question to Priyanka ma'am. Ma'am, what is virologist?
Virologist, we talked. So, virologist is someone who studies viruses. As we were saying that when you, so for example, right now we all are living in a pandemic caused by viruses, caused by a viral disease. So a virologist, for example, will study these viruses to try and find out how we can stop these diseases.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome, Sakshi.
And we also have a question from Subhan.
Ma'am, my question is for Chetna, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, my first question is, who is physicist? And my second question is, what are anti-atoms?
So these are questions you should ask Dr. Bolt. I am the writer, but so as these are like physicists, in plain words, someone who studies physics, right? But what does it mean in real life? And physics is broad, it includes so many things. So yeah, that in itself could be the topic of a storyline. What does a physicist do exactly? And anti-atoms is basically the opposite of atoms, the opposite of us. And these, so you should read more about what Priyanka was mentioning, I guess. Priyanka, it's better if you send that in the general group. I think the topic is just so fascinating. If Aditi, once
Yes, I
we are
can send
done
it.
with questions, I had a quick comment, but
Of course, I think we are done with questions. So thank you all of you for your wonderful questions. And now we can hear some final comments from Chetna.
First, thank you everyone for participating. Brilliant questions, and I love the energy. Second, after you go back from this workshop, if you would still like to write your article, please do that. And like Hindustan Times, Times of India, they all have like an editorial page and they have a students section. So when you open the newspaper, somewhere in the corner, you should be able to find an email address or on the website. You all have laptops right now, I guess, because you are joining and connecting with me. So Google, and you can really share your stories and publish them as a student. So try doing that.
That's a great idea, Chetna. And I really encourage all of you to do this because science is so much fun and all of you love science. So wouldn't it be great to write about science as well? So with that, we come to an end of today's workshop. Let's thank our guest speakers for creating such a wonderful activity for us today. I'm sure we all learned a lot from it, and we hope to see them back sometime in the future. And thank you to all of you students for joining us and bringing your energy to this workshop. And just before we say bye, if you want to turn on your videos for just a second and we can take a group photo together, that would be wonderful. Okay. I think everyone, if you like, you can turn on your videos, and when you're ready, you can give us your best smiles as if you're the one being interviewed. So you need to put on your best face and we'll take a photo. Great. All right. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Chetna and Priyanka, and all of you have a great Sunday ahead. So bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye.
Bye, ma'am.